Chosen one, anchor your spirit to every word I am about to say. That restlessness you have been carrying, the one that feels like something unfinished, something unresolved, something that keeps pulling at the edges of your sleep. It is not anxiety, it is a summons. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He knows you are about to discover what you were actually sent here to do. It all ends now. The confusion about your purpose, the fog around your calling, the warfare that has kept you distracted and doubting. But here is what you need to understand before we go any further. It is not ending because the season changed. It is ending because you are finally standing in the room you were built for. Think back to that moment this week when something in you went quiet. When you stopped arguing, stopped explaining yourself, stopped trying to justify your position to people who were never going to understand you anyway. You thought that was surrender. You thought that was you giving up. But you did not know it then. That stillness was you loading the weapon. That silence was you entering a stance. You did not walk away defeated. You walked away armed. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment written into your assignment before your name was spoken over the earth. You are not stumbling through a YouTube feed right now. You are standing at your post. Stay until the final second of this message, because in the next few minutes I am going to reveal the specific demon that has been assigned to your life in this season. I am going to hand you the spiritual decree that strips that assignment of its legal authority over your mind, your peace, and your future. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that activates your warrior identity, so that when you leave this message, you do not leave as a victim, you leave as a weapon. Do not scroll away. The version of you that has been praying for clarity, for direction, for the courage to stop running from the fight, they are sitting right where you are sitting, waiting for this moment. If you leave now, you leave before the armor is fully fastened. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. There has been a specific kind of heaviness in the air around you. Not grief exactly, not depression exactly. Something older than both. Something that feels like pressure from every direction at once. Like the walls of your life are narrowing and the space you have to breathe in keeps getting smaller. Maybe you woke up at 3 in the morning this week with a weight on your chest that you could not explain. Not a bad dream, not a sound in the house. Just a sudden, cold awareness that something was watching, something was close. Or maybe you have been moving through your days feeling like you are walking through resistance. Like every step forward costs you more energy than it should, like you are pushing against something invisible that refuses to let you move at full speed. You feel like a soldier who has been deployed but never received orders. You feel the warfare, but you do not yet know the target. And in that space, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that you are not equipped for this. He has been replaying every moment you fell, every sin you repeated, every prayer you forgot to pray, every time fear won. He has been pointing to those moments as evidence. He has been building a case in your mind that says you are too broken, too inconsistent, too far behind to be trusted with a spiritual mission of this magnitude. He has been telling you that warriors look different from how you look. They sound different. They have cleaner histories. He has been telling you that God made a mistake choosing you. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. 1 Samuel 17:45 says, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Listen to what David did not say. He did not say he came with experience. He did not say he came with a record of victories. He came with a name. He came with an identity. He came knowing who sent him and what that sending meant. And the giant fell not because David was perfect, but because David knew the battle did not belong to him, it belonged to the Lord. The enemy has been trying to make this fight about your credentials. But this fight was never about your credentials. It was always about your commission. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of failure pressing down on you. It is the weight of purpose loading into you. It is the specific gravity of a calling that is real, that is active, and that is now. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because you have been in preparation without knowing it, and preparation at this level costs something. You think the moments this week when you held your tongue, when you chose stillness over retaliation, when you walked away from a conversation that was designed to destabilize you, you think those were losses. You think you should have fought harder, spoken louder, held your ground differently. But let me reframe your reality right now. Those moments were not retreats. Those were reconnaissance. You were learning the territory. You were watching the enemy reveal his tactics. And every time you refused to react on his timeline, you forced him to show another card. You are not behind in this mission. You are exactly where a trained warrior stands before the final advance. Hit the like button if this message landed exactly where you needed it to land today, and drop a comment below. Tell me this: what is the one thing the enemy has been using most this week to make you feel disqualified? Name it out loud, because the moment you name it, you strip it of its power over you. Now that you have named it, now that you have pulled it out of the shadows and looked at it directly, something shifts. Because the enemy's greatest advantage was never his power. It was his anonymity. He operates best when he remains unidentified, when the attack feels like your own thought, when the accusation sounds like your own voice. But the moment you call it what it is, you have already changed the terms of engagement. This isn't just about labeling a feeling or a circumstance. It's about discerning the unseen hand, the spiritual entity, the lie that has been cleverly disguised as your own internal monologue or an unfortunate string of coincidences. Imagine a predator that hunts only in the darkest night, its form unseen, its presence only felt as a chilling breath on your neck. Its power lies not in its fangs or claws, but in your inability to locate it, to identify its species, its intent. You are left to wonder if the chill is just the wind, if the fear is simply your own irrational anxiety. But the instant you shine a light, the moment you recognize the form, the strategy changes. The predator loses its most potent weapon, the element of surprise, the cloak of invisibility. You move from being a bewildered victim to a discerning warrior because you know what you're up against. This act of naming is akin to calling forth a hidden enemy into the light of day, stripping it of its camouflage and its ability to wage psychological warfare under the guise of your own mind. It's the first step in drawing a clear line in the sand, understanding that the battle is external, even if its whispers sound internal. And this is where we need to go deeper. Because naming the thing is not the same as understanding it. And until you understand what specific assignment has been moving against your life in this season, you will keep responding to symptoms instead of the source. Think of it like this: you can identify a headache as a headache, but until you understand whether it's caused by dehydration, stress, or something more serious, you're only ever going to take painkillers. You're treating the manifestation, not the root cause. Many of us spend our spiritual lives playing whack-a-mole with symptoms of spiritual attack. We feel discouraged, so we declare joy. We experience lack, so we declare abundance. We feel isolated, so we declare connection. These declarations are powerful, yes, but without understanding the specific assignment. Behind these symptoms, we're constantly on the defensive, reacting to every new manifestation without truly dismantling the strategic intent of the enemy. Discerning the specific assignment means asking, what is the enemy really trying to accomplish here? What aspect of my destiny, my identity, my calling is under siege? This level of insight moves you from merely identifying a problem to strategically addressing its very foundation, turning reactive defense into proactive spiritual intelligence. It means recognizing that the devil is not just a general nuisance, he is a cunning strategist, and to overcome him, we must become strategic in our spiritual response. Here is what I know about the warfare you have been experiencing. It is not random. Spiritual attacks are never random. They are targeted, they are timed, and they are always proportional to the threat you represent. The enemy does not waste coordinated warfare on people who are not close to something significant. If you are feeling this level of pressure, this specific kind of disorientation, it is because something in the unseen realm has calculated exactly how close you are to the thing that terrifies darkness the most. You walking in full clarity about who you are and what you were built to do. This isn't some chaotic cosmic accident. It's a meticulously planned assault, a precision strike against the very core of your divine purpose. Imagine a highly skilled military strategist deploying their most formidable resources not against a common foot soldier, but against a high-value target, a commander on the brink of securing a crucial victory. The intensity of the pressure you feel, the disorienting fog that seems to descend, the relentless whispers designed to pull you off course. These are not signs of your weakness or insignificance. On the contrary, they are a powerful, albeit painful, affirmation of your immense spiritual value. The unseen realm is not foolish. It expends its energy only where a significant threat to its dominion exists. What terrifies darkness most is not your religious activity, but your authentic, empowered self. You, fully understanding your identity as a child of God, fully embodying your unique anointing, and fully stepping into the assignment you were uniquely crafted for since before time began. Your clarity, your purpose, your unshakable alignment with heaven's will, this is the target, because this is the light that pierces deepest into the shadows of the enemy's kingdom. The very pressure you're experiencing is a barometer of your proximity to a profound breakthrough, a divinely orchestrated moment where your true self is about to manifest in power. Think about Elijah. After his greatest victory, after the fire fell on Mount Carmel, after 450 false prophets were exposed and defeated, Jezebel sent one message. One. And that single message drove him into the wilderness under a broom tree, asking God to let him die, not before the victory. After it, the attack came when he was at his highest, when he had just demonstrated the most power. That is not coincidence. That is the enemy's strategy. He waits for the moment of breakthrough, and then he sends one whisper designed to undo everything you just built. Picture the scene on Mount Carmel, the taunts of the Baal prophets, their desperate, fruitless cries, then Elijah's simple, faith-filled prayer. The sky tears open, fire descends, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. It was a spectacular, undeniable display of God's sovereignty and Elijah's anointing. 450 false prophets were defeated. A nation turned back to God. The air still crackled with divine power. The echoes of victory still resonated in the mountains. This was a man at the absolute zenith of his spiritual power and public affirmation. And then came one message from a queen, a single, concise threat delivered by a messenger. It wasn't an army marching, not a plague, not a direct confrontation. Just a word, a whisper. Yet this whisper, delivered at his point of emotional and spiritual exhaustion after such a monumental exertion of faith, sent him fleeing into the barren wilderness, collapsing under a broom tree, utterly depleted, praying for death. This is not arbitrary. This is the calculated precision of the enemy. He understands that the moment of greatest triumph often leaves us most vulnerable, our spiritual reserves drained, our emotional defenses lowered. He doesn't strike when you're weak, he strikes after. You've just expended all your strength in battle, when your guard is down and your spirit is ready for rest, not renewed war. He lies in wait for the high of breakthrough to dissipate, for the adrenaline to wear off, and then he delivers the subtle, insidious blow that aims to unravel the very fabric of your faith and purpose. The whisper Jezebel sent was not a military threat, it was an identity threat. It said, "You are alone, you are the only one left, and no one is coming." This was a direct assault on Elijah's sense of purpose, his connection to community, and his value to God. It didn't threaten his physical life in the moment. It threatened his spiritual vitality, his reason for being. "You are alone" implied isolation, abandonment, and a lack of support, even from the God who had just performed a miracle through him. "You are the only one left" aimed to breed a sense of unique burden, an unbearable weight that no one else shared, fostering despair. And "no one is coming" solidified the perception of a future without help, without hope, without divine intervention. It was a lie crafted to dismantle his spirit from the inside out, turning his magnificent victory into a crushing burden and his unique calling into a solitary curse. It sought to convince him that his divine purpose was a lonely road, a path that would only lead to further isolation and ultimately to his own demise. And that is the whisper you have been fighting this week too, isn't it? Not necessarily those exact words, but that exact weight, the feeling that you are carrying something no one else can see, that you are standing in a war that the people around you cannot even perceive, that you have been praying and pressing and believing, and the ones who should be standing with you are either absent or asleep, or too distracted to notice that the ground beneath your feet is a battlefield. It's the invisible burden, the silent battle being waged within your spirit that drains your energy and clouds your vision. It's the profound loneliness of knowing you are called to a higher purpose, but feeling utterly isolated in the journey. Perhaps you've been battling intense self-doubt that feels like your own inner voice, or a pervasive sense of inadequacy that clings to you like a shroud. You see others moving forward, seemingly unburdened, while you feel trapped in a spiritual quagmire. You try to articulate the intensity of what you're facing, but the words feel inadequate, or you fear being dismissed. The pain is amplified when those you expect to be your closest allies, your family, friends, spiritual community, seem oblivious to the tempest raging around you. They're going about their days, perhaps in their own battles, but unaware of the invisible spiritual combat you're engaged in. They are either spiritually disengaged or simply unable to perceive the spiritual dimensions of your struggle. This feeling of fighting an unseen war with unseen enemies and without visible allies can be one of the most isolating and demoralizing experiences, making you question your sanity, your faith, and even the reality of your calling. It's a strategic maneuver by the enemy to cut off your lifeline of connection and affirmation, leaving you vulnerable to despair. But what I want you to see is what God did not do when Elijah hit that wall. He did not rebuke him. He did not remind him of his failures. He did not say, "How dare you rest after what I just did through you?" He sent an angel. He fed him. He let him sleep. And then he asked, not with accusation but with tenderness, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Imagine the human reaction. A stern lecture, a reminder of responsibilities, a demand for resilience. But God's response was a masterclass in divine compassion. He saw a broken, exhausted servant, not a rebellious one. He understood the toll of spiritual warfare and the human need for restoration. He didn't just tell Elijah to pull himself together. He actively ministered to his physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. An angel, a direct messenger from the throne of grace, appeared not with judgment, but with nourishment. Fresh bread and water, a tangible expression of divine care. He allowed him to rest, not just for an hour or two, but for days, understanding that healing takes time and space. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't with a thunderous voice of correction, but with a gentle, probing question. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This question wasn't designed to shame or accuse, but to invite reflection, to draw Elijah out of his self-imposed isolation and back into a divine dialogue. It was an act of profound grace, demonstrating that even in our deepest despair and apparent flight from duty, God's love and restorative power meet us exactly where we are, with tender understanding rather than harsh judgment. That question was not a rebuke, it was an invitation. It was God saying, "You have forgotten your own story. Let me remind you. Let me show you what you cannot see from where you are sitting. Let me tell you about the 7,000 who have not bowed their knee. Let me tell you that you were never as alone as the enemy needed you to believe." This invitation was a lifeline thrown into Elijah's sea of despair, pulling him back to truth. "You have forgotten your own story" implied a loss of perspective, a temporary amnesia of divine faithfulness and past victories. God wasn't just reminding Elijah of the facts. He was recalibrating Elijah's vision, helping him see beyond his immediate, fear-filled circumstances. From his vantage point under the broom tree, isolated and defeated, Elijah could only see his own perceived failure and loneliness. But God offered a panoramic view, revealing a hidden network of faithful believers, the 7,000 who have not bowed their knee to Baal. This revelation was a direct counterattack to the enemy's whisper of isolation. It shattered the illusion that Elijah was the sole champion of God, alleviating the immense pressure and validating his continuing purpose. It was a profound spiritual insight. Even when your immediate visible surroundings suggest abandonment, there is always a broader, unseen reality of divine support and solidarity. God was showing Elijah that the battlefield was larger than his current perception and his allies more numerous than he could comprehend. He was reminding him that his unique anointing was part of a greater, unbreakable covenant, and that the narrative of his life was ultimately written by God, not by Jezebel's threats. You have never been as alone as the enemy needed you to believe. This is a truth to anchor your soul in, a spiritual GPS reset. And what is coming next is going to challenge the framework you have been using to measure your own progress, because I need you to see something about the way you have been reading your own delays. We live in a world that champions instant gratification and visible progress. Our metrics for success are often external: open doors, public recognition, tangible results. Because of this societal conditioning, we often apply these same faulty metrics to our spiritual journeys, leading to deep frustration and self-doubt. The enemy, ever the master manipulator of perception, capitalizes on this. He knows that if he can warp your understanding of divine timing and purpose, he can undermine your faith and derail your assignment. So, prepare for a paradigm shift, a re-evaluation of everything you thought you knew about forward momentum and heavenly design. It's time to dismantle the limiting frameworks that have kept you trapped in self-condemnation and uncertainty, and embrace a deeper, truer understanding of God's perfect plan. You have been interpreting stillness as stagnation. You have been reading silence as abandonment. You have been calling preparation failure because the preparation has not looked the way you expected it to look. You thought by now you would be further. You thought by now the doors would be open. You thought by now the thing you have been carrying in your spirit would have a name that other people could recognize. And because it does not yet, you have been questioning whether the vision was ever real at all. This is the core deception, mistaking divine process for personal failure. Stillness, like the quiet of winter, is often a season of profound unseen work. roots growing deeper, nutrients being absorbed, life consolidating its energy for a powerful spring eruption. Yet we panic, fearing we're barren. Silence, like a master sculptor working intently on a masterpiece, is not abandonment, it's intense focus. A sacred period where God is shaping and refining, carefully crafting the details of your destiny without the need for constant audible commentary. But we interpret it as a lack of divine presence, a sign we've been forgotten. Your preparation, which might involve hidden lessons, humbling experiences, or simply a prolonged period of internal formation, might feel like a failure because it doesn't align with the glamorous, instant success narratives we often consume. You expected the doors to be flung open with fanfare, the anointing to be visibly recognized, the vision you carry to be clearly labeled and validated by others. And when those external markers aren't present, the insidious whisper begins. Was it all a delusion? Did I mishear God? Am I truly meant for this? This questioning of the vision itself is a dangerous trap, designed to make you abort your mission before it ever reaches fruition. It's the enemy's ultimate goal in these seasons of hiddenness, to make you doubt the very source of your calling. But here is the principle you need to receive right now. God does not waste seasons. Not one of them. Not the confusing ones. Not the humiliating ones. Not the ones where you were too broken to function in the calling. Not the ones where you wandered. Every single season was curriculum. Every single season was building something in you that could not have been built any other way. This truth is a bedrock for your faith, a lens through which to re-examine every past experience. God is not an absent-minded architect. He is a meticulous craftsman, and every stroke, every chisel mark, every period of heating and cooling in the forge of your life serves a deliberate purpose. The confusing seasons, those periods of dense fog where clarity seemed impossible, were actually forging your discernment and dependence on divine leading, teaching you to trust the invisible hand. The humiliating ones, where pride was stripped away and vulnerability exposed, were essential for cultivating true humility, preparing you for a platform where character, not charisma, would sustain you. The seasons where you felt too broken to function in your calling were, in fact, the very crucible where your resilience was refined, your reliance on God strengthened, and your capacity for empathy deepened, making you a vessel of true compassion. And even the ones where you wandered, when you strayed from the perceived path, were opportunities for God to demonstrate His unfailing pursuit, His relentless love, and to teach you valuable lessons about grace and redemption. Every single experience, every tear, every challenge, every seemingly wasted moment was a carefully designed unit in your divine curriculum, an indispensable component in the construction of the person you are destined to become. None of it was arbitrary. All of it was intentional, shaping you for the unique assignment only you can fulfill. Joseph spent years in a pit and a prison before he stood in a palace. But here is what most people miss when they read that story. He did not become the man who could govern Egypt during the palace years. He became that man in the pit. The palace was just where the preparation was revealed. The years of invisibility were not years of delay. They were years of construction. The grandeur of Joseph's ultimate position in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh, often overshadows the brutal, formative years that preceded it. He was a teenager with a prophetic dream, then thrown into a literal pit by his jealous brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and unjustly imprisoned for over a decade. Imagine the psychological and spiritual toll. Yet in that pit, stripped of family and freedom, he learned profound lessons in surrender, forgiveness, and trust in God's sovereign plan, despite betrayal. In Potiphar's house, he developed administrative skills, integrity, and the ability to lead with excellence, even under oppressive circumstances. In the prison, he learned to interpret dreams, to serve faithfully even when forgotten, and to manage resources with wisdom. These weren't wasted years. They were a divine university, a rigorous training ground where the character, wisdom, and leadership qualities required to govern a nation during famine were meticulously forged. The palace was not where he became capable. It was where his already formed capabilities were finally deployed. His years of being unseen, unheard, and unrecognized were not periods of stagnation. They were the intense, often painful construction phase of his destiny. They were the foundation laying, the beam setting, the intricate wiring, all done out of public view, but absolutely essential for the towering structure he would eventually become. Your season of hiddenness has not been heaven forgetting you. It has been heaven finishing you. This period of quiet, unseen development is not an oversight by the divine. It is an intimate, precise process of completion. Imagine a master artisan meticulously working on a precious jewel, shaping, polishing, cutting facets that will allow it to catch the light perfectly, or a skilled blacksmith repeatedly heating and hammering a blade, folding the metal over and over, refining its strength and sharpness in the dark heat of the forge. This hidden time is heaven's finishing school, where rough edges are smoothed, internal resilience is built, and the unique spiritual DNA of your calling is fully activated. It's the divine hand completing the intricate work within you, preparing you to shine brighter, cut clearer, and endure stronger when you are finally revealed. You are not dormant. You are undergoing a profound spiritual metamorphosis, being readied for a divine unveiling that will showcase the masterpiece God has been creating in you all along. Stay with me, because what I am about to say next is the part of this message that most people are not ready to hear. It is the piece that unsettles everything, but it is also the piece that, once it lands, changes the entire trajectory of how you move from this moment forward. This is a pivot point in our understanding, a shift in perspective that demands courage and introspection. Many find it unsettling because it asks us to look inward, to challenge our comfortable narratives about external blame, and to recognize a deeper, more insidious form of spiritual warfare. But I promise you, embracing this truth will unlock a level of freedom and power you never thought possible. The enemy assigned to your life in this season is not primarily attacking your circumstances. He is attacking your perception. His primary weapon against you right now is not sickness, not lack, not broken relationships, not closed doors, though he uses all of those. His primary weapon is the reinterpretation of your story. He is working to make you read your own life in a way that strips it of meaning. He needs you to believe that the things you have walked through were just damage, just loss, just wasted time, because if he can convince you of that, you will never reach back into those seasons and pull out the authority that was forged in them. Understand this, while external attacks are real, they are often mere distractions, smoke and mirrors to conceal the true battlefield. Your mind, your understanding, your perception of your own narrative. The enemy isn't just trying to make you suffer, he's trying to make you misinterpret your suffering. He wants you to see your scars as signs of weakness, not badges of survival. He wants you to view your trials as meaningless detours rather than divine training grounds. He whispers that your past wounds are merely damage, indelible stains, rather than the very raw material from which resilience, empathy, and profound wisdom are forged. His goal is to strip your story of its redemptive power, to convince you that your journey has been a series of unfortunate events, leaving you depleted and diminished. Because if you believe that lie, you will never understand that the very seasons you deem wasted or lost were, in fact, the crucibles where a powerful, unshakable authority was forged within you. You would never realize that the lessons learned, the empathy gained, the resilience cultivated in those difficult times are the very weapons he cannot touch, the very keys to unlocking your next level of destiny. This is a war for the narrative of your life, and your victory depends on reclaiming the truth of your story as God sees it. Every wound you survived is a weapon he cannot touch, but only if you know it. This is profound. A wound, once healed, leaves a scar. That scar isn't just a memory of pain. It's a testament to your survival, a marker of resilience, a symbol of growth. When you understand the lessons learned, the strength gained, the compassion deepened through your suffering, those experiences transform. They cease to be liabilities and become assets. Your ability to empathize with others, your wisdom in navigating adversity, your unshakable trust in God forged in the fire. These are weapons. They are spiritual armaments that empower you to minister, to lead, to overcome. But this transformation from wound to weapon is not automatic. It requires conscious awareness, intentional reframing, and a refusal to let the enemy define your pain. It requires you to know with absolute certainty that your past does not disqualify you. It uniquely qualifies you. Without this understanding, the enemy will keep those wounds festering, using them to sow self-pity, fear, and doubt, preventing you from realizing the immense power embedded within your testimony. Your testimony, born from your trials, is a potent force for good, a testament to God's faithfulness that the enemy simply cannot replicate or overcome. And this is where it gets confrontational, because I need to challenge something you may not want to hear. Some of what you have been calling spiritual warfare is actually spiritual avoidance. Some of what you have labeled as the enemy's resistance is actually the tension of your own growth, pushing against the smaller version of yourself that you have been comfortable living inside. Not all of it. The warfare is real, but there is a layer underneath the warfare that belongs entirely to you, and it requires a different response than prayer and declaration. It requires honesty. It requires you to sit with the question, what am I protecting that God has already asked me to lay down? This is a tough pill to swallow, but it's crucial for true liberation. Often, in our earnest desire to do battle, we can inadvertently externalize internal struggles, attributing every discomfort to an external demonic force. While genuine spiritual warfare exists and is fierce, there are moments when the resistance we feel is not an attack from without, but a stretching from within. It's the natural, uncomfortable tension that arises when a caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly or when a snake sheds its old skin. The old, smaller self feels safe, familiar, predictable. The new, expansive, God-commissioned self feels risky, unknown, vulnerable. This internal friction, this existential growing pain, can be easily mislabeled as enemy opposition. But if it's internal, a different kind of weapon is required. It's not about declarations against demons, but honest self-assessment, courageous introspection, and a willingness to confront your own protective mechanisms. The question, what am I protecting that God has already asked me to lay down, cuts to the chase. Are you clinging to comfort, reputation, old habits, perceived safety, or a limited self-image? Are you valuing predictability over purpose, or human approval over divine assignment? This is the moment to be radically honest with yourself, because this layer of self-imposed resistance, when unaddressed, can become a more significant barrier than any external enemy. Because here is what I have seen in the lives of people who carry significant callings. There comes a moment in their preparation where the primary obstacle is no longer external. The giant is real. The battle is real. But the thing standing between them and the next level is a belief they have been holding on to like a shield. A belief that keeps them safe from the risk of full exposure. Maybe it is the belief that they are not ready. Maybe it is the belief that if they step fully into the calling, they will lose the relationships that have defined them. Maybe it is the belief that visibility brings vulnerability, and vulnerability means pain, and the last time they were truly seen, they were truly hurt. This is a critical juncture in the journey of purpose, a turning point where the war shifts from purely outward to profoundly inward. The external giants and battles are undeniable, the real challenges, the genuine opposition. But beneath these, a more subtle, deeply ingrained resistance emerges. It's a conviction, often subconscious, that acts as an invisible barrier, a self-imposed limitation cloaked in logic or past trauma. This belief system, like an invisible shield, is designed to protect you from perceived harm, from the perceived risks of stepping fully into your divine mandate. For some, it's the insidious lie of, "I'm not enough," or "I'm not truly ready," a subtle perfectionism that demands flawless preparation before any action. For others, it's the poignant fear of losing the familiar comfort of existing relationships, the dread that stepping into their full light will alienate those who have defined their identity up to this point, a fear rooted in a deep need for belonging and approval. And for many, it's the raw, visceral memory that visibility brings vulnerability, and that the last time they dared to be truly seen, truly exposed, they were profoundly hurt, betrayed, or wounded. This deep-seated fear of pain, rejection, or failure becomes a protective shell, preventing them from embracing the very exposure that their calling demands. These are not trivial fears. They are deeply personal, often born from real experiences. But they are now operating as obstacles, holding you captive in the threshold of your own potential, preventing you from fully embracing the life and purpose God has destined for you. And so they stay in the threshold, fully equipped but not fully entered, armed but not yet advancing. This is a place of agonizing paradox, a spiritual purgatory where immense potential is trapped in perpetual readiness. Imagine a warrior, clad in gleaming armor, sword at their side, meticulously trained and fully capable, yet standing frozen at the city gates. The battle rages just beyond. The call to advance echoes, but they remain at the precipice, unwilling or unable to step onto the field. They possess all the necessary tools, all the anointing, all the preparation, but they cannot cross the invisible line. It's a state of being almost there, perpetually on the verge of breakthrough, yet never quite breaking through. The frustration in this space is profound, a gnawing sense of unfulfilled destiny, of power held back, of a life lived perpetually in the preamble. It is a self-imposed limitation, born not of external force, but of an internal agreement with fear. This is the hidden root, not the enemy, not the past, not the people who walked away. It is the agreement you made, quietly, without even realizing it, that it was safer to remain almost ready, almost whole, almost there. Because almost means you never have to find out what happens if you go all the way and it still does not work. This agreement is often a silent covenant you made with a part of yourself, perhaps in a moment of pain or fear, a subconscious pact to protect yourself from the ultimate disappointment of giving your absolute everything and still falling short. Almost becomes a comfortable cage, a protective illusion. If you're almost ready, you always have an excuse for not stepping out. If you're almost whole, you can always attribute any shortcomings to your unresolved issues. If you're almost there, you maintain the hope of arrival without ever having to face the potential vulnerability of actually reaching the destination. The allure of almost is its ability to offer the illusion of progress without the risk of full commitment, full exposure, or full failure. It keeps you on the threshold, eternally poised for greatness, but never quite manifesting it. This is the subtle self-sabotage that stems from a deep-seated fear of what might happen if you truly lay everything on the line. It's the ultimate defense mechanism, one that prevents both crushing failure and ultimate triumph. But remaining in almost is a slow death to your divine purpose, a quiet betrayal of the very calling heaven placed upon your life. But that agreement ends today, not because you have finally resolved every fear, not because you have earned enough clarity to deserve the breakthrough. It ends because staying in the threshold is no longer an option for someone carrying what you carry. The assignment is too important, the timing is too precise, and the version of you that keeps waiting for perfect conditions to finally move, that version has to die here so the commissioned version can rise. This is a moment of divine decree, an ultimatum from destiny itself. This isn't about human effort or achieving some internal perfection. It's about a divine mandate that transcends your current emotional state or your perceived readiness. The fears you hold, the questions that linger, the uncertainties that swirl, they don't magically dissipate before the breakthrough. In fact, they may intensify right at the point of decision. But the truth is, you don't need to be fearless to move. You need to be obedient. You don't need perfect clarity. You need to trust the one who holds the blueprint. Staying at the threshold is no longer a viable option because the spiritual weight of your calling, the urgency of your divine assignment, and the meticulous precision of heaven's timing demand your full, unreserved participation. The world is waiting for what you carry. Heaven is poised to release through you. Therefore, the old, cautious, hesitant version of you, the one always waiting for the stars to align, for every doubt to vanish, for every path to be perfectly clear, that version must experience a spiritual death. It must be laid down here, at this very threshold, so that the commissioned, empowered, and fully activated version of yourself can rise, like a phoenix from the ashes of your old limitations, ready to step into the fullness of its divine purpose. This is a non-negotiable step on the path to your destiny. This is the moment David picked up the stone. Not after the fear left, not after he fully understood the outcome. While his hands were still trembling, he ran toward the giant. The running was the declaration. The motion was the prayer. The advance was the act of faith that the words alone could not contain. Consider David, a young shepherd boy, standing before a towering, taunting Philistine giant. He wasn't a seasoned warrior. He was an unlikely champion. Did he feel no fear? His hands were trembling, a visceral manifestation of his humanity and the sheer terror of the moment. He didn't wait for his knees to stop knocking or for a perfectly clear vision of how the battle would unfold. He didn't engage in lengthy internal debate. He simply picked up the smooth stones and, with a sling as his only visible weapon, he ran towards the seemingly insurmountable foe. That act of running, that deliberate, decisive forward motion in the face of overwhelming odds, was his most powerful declaration of faith. It was a prayer embodied, a silent, profound conversation with God that echoed, "I trust you, even though every fiber of my being screams danger." His advance was not just physical movement, it was an act of audacious faith, a testament to a belief that transcended logical reasoning and defied the visible reality. It was an action that spoke louder and with more conviction than any verbal affirmation ever could. It demonstrated his implicit trust in the God who had already delivered him from the lion and the bear, a God whose power was infinitely greater than any giant. You have been waiting for the fear to leave before you move. But the fear does not leave before the movement. The fear leaves during it. And on the other side of the motion you have been postponing is the version of your life that has been waiting for you since before you were born. This is a fundamental truth about courage and breakthrough. We often imagine a sequential process. Fear disappears, then we act. But in reality, true courage is acting in the presence of fear. Fear is a shadow that often accompanies us to the threshold, but it cannot follow us into the light of action. With each step you take, with each decision to advance, with each act of faith, the shadow of fear begins to recede. It doesn't vanish instantly, but it diminishes with momentum, gradually yielding to the tangible experience of divine presence and power in motion. The paralysis you feel is not a permanent state. It is a temporary condition that is broken by intentional movement. And on the other side of this pivotal motion, this intentional step forward that you have been contemplating and postponing, lies the authentic, unleashed version of your life. This isn't just a better version, it's the predestined version, the life that was dreamed for you, crafted for you, and held in divine anticipation since before you drew your first breath. It's a life of profound purpose, unwavering clarity, and unleashed potential, waiting for you to simply step into it. The moment you choose to move, you align with the ancient, sacred blueprint of your destiny, fulfilling the promise that has patiently awaited your arrival. So before you leave this message, before you close this screen and step back into the world that has been pressing against you, I need you to do something. I need you to make a decision right now, not a feeling, not a hope, not a wish, a decision. A locked-in, line-in-the-sand, no more threshold decision that you are done interpreting your story through the enemy's lens, that you are done calling your preparation a prison, that you are done letting the weapon of almost keep you from advancing into the fullness of what you were sent here to carry. This is not a suggestion, it's an imperative. A decision is a powerful act of the will, a definitive commitment that transcends fluctuating emotions or fleeting aspirations. It is a moment where you draw a sacred boundary, declaring with conviction that the old patterns, the old agreements, and the old perceptions no longer hold sway over your life. This locked-in, line-in-the-sand decision means there is no turning back, no lingering at the edge of your destiny. You are consciously choosing to dismantle the enemy's corrupted narrative, refusing to allow him to define your past, present, or future. You are liberating yourself from the illusion that your seasons of hiddenness and formation were periods of confinement, recognizing them instead as integral parts of your divine strengthening. And most critically, you are renouncing the insidious weapon of almost, the subtle self-sabotage that has kept you tethered to the threshold, preventing you from fully embracing and advancing into the magnificent, weighty, and world-changing assignment you were precisely engineered to carry. This decision is your declaration of spiritual sovereignty, a reclamation of your divine authority, and the definitive step out of dormancy and into destiny. And if you made that decision, if something in your spirit just said yes to that, drop the word warrior in the comments right now. Let that be your declaration. Let that be the moment you mark in time as the day you stopped waiting and started advancing. And share this message with someone who is standing at the same threshold, because they need to hear this today. They need to know their delays were not abandonment. Their wounds are not disqualifications. Their preparation is almost complete, and the giant ahead of them has already lost. Place your hand on your chest right now and speak this over yourself. I am not what I have been through. I am not the sum of my failures, my fears, or my false starts. I break every agreement I made with the lie that I was too broken, too late, or too far behind. I renounce the spirit of almost. I reclaim the authority that was forged in every season I survived. I am not moving toward my purpose. I am standing inside it. The delay is over. The threshold is behind me. I am the weapon heaven sharpened in the dark, and I step into the light, knowing that I was built for this moment, called for this assignment, and covered by a God who does not make mistakes. The enemy's assignment against my identity is cancelled. My commission is active. and I move forward, not when the fear is gone, but right now, in the middle of it, because the battle was never mine to win. It was always mine to show up for. Let these words resonate from the deepest core of your being, not as mere affirmation, but as a powerful, sovereign declaration. I am not what I have been through. This is a statement of divine identity, severing the chains of past circumstances and declaring that your experiences, however profound, do not define the essence of who you are in Christ. I am not the sum of my failures, my fears, or my false starts. This is a liberation from self-condemnation, releasing the heavy burden of past mistakes and the paralyzing grip of apprehension. I break every agreement I made with the lie that I was too broken, too late, or too far behind. This is a spiritual divorce from every insidious untruth, every limiting belief, every subtle pact with inadequacy that has held you captive. I renounce the spirit of almost. This is a definitive rejection of procrastination, of hesitation, of living perpetually on the verge, and an embrace of full, uncompromising commitment. I reclaim the authority that was forged in every season I survived. This is an act of spiritual alchemy, transforming every trial, every wound, every difficult season into a source of potent, unshakable power and wisdom. I am not moving toward my purpose, I am standing inside it. This is a declaration of present tense reality, a shift from seeking to inhabiting, from aspiring to embodying your divine mandate. The delay is over. The threshold is behind me. This is a powerful decree of closure, a definitive step out of limbo and into the fullness of your destiny. I am the weapon heaven sharpened in the dark. This is a profound recognition of your divine craftsmanship, understanding that your hidden seasons were not wasted, but purposeful, forging you into a precise instrument for God's glory. And I step into the light, knowing that I was built for this moment, called for this assignment, and covered by a God who does not make mistakes. This is a triple affirmation of divine providence, an unshakable confidence in your unique design, your specific calling, and the infallible wisdom of your Creator. The enemy's assignment against my identity is cancelled. My commission is active. This is a decree of spiritual victory, dismantling every lie and every strategic attack leveled against your true self, and activating your divine mandate with immediate effect. And I move forward, not when the fear is gone, but right now, in the middle of it, because the battle was never mine to win. It was always mine to show up for. This is the ultimate surrender and the ultimate act of courage, recognizing that victory is God's to orchestrate. But your presence, your willingness to advance in faith, is the essential key to unlocking it. You are showing up for destiny, right here, right now.